book or podcast or any resources that has been a game changer for you that you would recommend to our audience? So I would say We Connect. We have a wonderful program for minority and women entrepreneurs. I would also recommend NYWIB, Mai just mentioned. It's a wonderful program for women in the business who want to network and make new friends and get to learn from professional experts. I also recommend SCORE. We actually have a SCORE mentor here, Kareem. Say hi to him after the panel. So yeah, check out SCORE as well.
I would say for me it's Paul Graham's essays. I'm just curious, how many here have heard of Paul Graham? Okay, so I guess for the maybe 80% who haven't, he's the founder of Y Combinator, which is the largest and like I think the best accelerator incubator globally in the world. And through Y Combinator, you've seen like huge companies that have come out like Airbnb, Stripe, among many others. But his essays, even though many of them are written in like the 2000s, like 2010s, like they are still extremely evergreen and still super relevant. So my favorite fundraising resource of all time, as a founder and as an investor, because I used to be an investor my entire life prior to this, is his essay on how to raise money. So paulgraham.com/fr.html. And then if you want to start a business, then it's Do Things That Don't Scale is also one of his super like seminal articles about how you should be, delighting your customers and just being okay to do like operationally intensive things that are not scalable, but eventually you will like automate them and scale them away. So for example, when Stripe first started, they said that, hey, there's 24/7 like instant tech support, is instant sign up. That's on the front end, but when people would sign up for it, it's actually the founders panicking on the back end, like signing you up live. But on the front end, you think it's instant, but they're on the back end, like signing you up manually, right? So it's doing things that don't scale, and it's again paulgraham.com/ds.html. So like Paul Graham, all his essays I love, but these two in particular, I think are like incredible for any founders, that are interested both to start in the early days and also fundraise.
Well, I would hope that you come to Welcome to Chinatown as a resource, for sure. We'll be having a lot more programming, especially when the space reopens in July, post-construction. This is the book, it's called Recoding America, Why Governments Fail in the Digital Age. And I absolutely love that book. I actually had my team read it during our offsite. And I think with the two biggest takeaways for the book and like why I recommend it, first is that when you're thinking about an idea and like a concept, or especially something that's like very lofty, people like don't think about the implementation of things, because it's just like, it's not fun necessarily, right, to think about like the operations and the implementation. You get stuck in this like lofty concept, or like so the book focuses a lot on that, and like what happens when you don't think about implementation. And then the second biggest takeaway for me from the book was around decision making, and like not being able, like essentially when you have something that is failing, like if you're testing it and like it's failing, when do you decide to say no and to pull back, and instead of like continuously investing resources and like money into this. Like there's an entrepreneur that we got connected with, where they spent so much of their money on like social ads, and they were targeting the wrong individuals. And they kept going like, well, let's just keep putting more money into this because we'll eventually target the right individuals. But it's like, at that point, you could have maybe been investing in like B2B partnerships. You could have been thinking about, right, somewhere else. So that's where I felt like in the book, thinking about like that level of like decision making and kind of how to like separate that emotion out of it was like a really great takeaway for me.
I'll plug SCORE and NYWIB again. The mentorship services have been such a confidence building foundation for me. Things that I listen to or have read recently. There's a book called Hidden Potential by a psychologist named Adam Grant. That book really helped me. I mean, it's new and I just finished listening to the audiobook of it. But the premise is that that we all have hidden potential. Because I feel like in starting this venture, I was my own biggest obstacle, right? I had the biggest imposter syndrome. I thought there was no way that I could pull this off, that I didn't have what it took. I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the right experiences, I didn't know the right people, all the things, right, I told myself. And his work really helped me overcome a lot of that, those internal obstacles and that lack of belief. In addition to speaking to so many others, including my mentors who have been a great support. And then I also listened to a lot of the podcast, How I Built This, which is a great plug for learning from others who have built something and hearing their struggles and hearing firsthand that they all started somewhere. It's inspiring. So you're starting something up. I highly recommend that podcast as well.
Wow, super helpful. So as we wrap up, I'd like to hear each of you, what's your favorite Lunar New Year tradition? What are you gonna do this weekend, or maybe tonight?
So on Saturday, I have some Singaporean friends that are hosting like a Chinese New Year reunion dinner. So there's gonna be like Singaporean bihun and curry and like a bunch of like local Chinese food, and then we're all supposed to bring like different dishes to come. To go. So I think reunion dinner is one. Like if I was back in Singapore, like you definitely have to go home and like have dinner with your family, your immediate family, and then like it's kind of like Thanksgiving in America, where you like prepare food the whole day with them, and then it'll be like a really big like Chinese meal at home. So I guess like on Saturday that would be the equivalent. So I think for me it's like really gathering and eating, like friends and food.
That's the best. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I celebrated Lunar New Year with my family already, so we are gonna have like a slew of events for the rest of the month. So last Friday, gathered all my cousins, my partner's family, and some like friends that I've grown up with, and I actually hosted a dinner for them in the Welcome Chinatown space. So had like 40 of my relatives there, and got like a lion dancer, had all the food, dim sum like catered. So that was really lovely. My family we haven't actually gotten together for Lunar New Year since like before COVID. And then the thing I'm looking forward to is, so my late grandmother, she lived in Chinatown, had an apartment. She's passed a number of years ago, but there's a photo of her in the temple, in like the temple that's like very close to the Manhattan Bridge. So what I like to do for New Year is like she used to like milk tea a lot, and I always would get like from this very particular bakery. It has like this pink cup called Lucky King. So I always like get the milk tea and then also like a bun, and I'll like leave it at the temple for her. So on New Year's I'll go do that tomorrow morning.
For us, we're gonna do some of the classic things. Lion dancing is always my personal favorite growing up, and so I love sharing that with my kids now. I love that kind of continuity of that tradition that we're able to pass on to the generations. Something I'm thinking a lot about and how I want to help people make sure that these traditions endure is how we can make these traditions, or be a part of the evolution of these traditions as well, and can make new traditions of your own so that you can carry on these customs through the generations. And so some things that I've started to do with my family that I didn't do growing up, with the Lucky Red envelopes, for example, we definitely give them to our girls. They don't appreciate the money in them, though, right? Funnily, they'd rather coins than cash bills, because their coins are more fun. And then better than coins are chocolate gold coins. So those are some new traditions, and instead of just giving them the envelopes in the traditional way, which we'll continue to do, we want to spark joy and wonder and excitement in the holiday. And so something that I started last year that we're going to continue to do with my kids and their friends when we host them over the next few days is do new things, like hide the red envelopes so that they can go and look for them, and go in search of these red envelopes and find joy in opening them up and seeing what's inside. So it's a mix of classic traditions like lion dancing and creating new traditions for our family.
Sounds so much fun. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists. So I think we're gonna open the floor to.
Yeah, just opening the floor for any questions from the audience.
Thank you, everyone. So two questions, hopefully quickly. So looking back, how did you find out your business models? I'm sure it took a few iterations and all of that, but if you don't mind, it would be great to share the experience. And also looking forward, given it's Lunar New Year, so I guess it's hopefully it's also appropriate to ask the Lunar New Year resolution if there's any. So yeah, good question. Thank you.
Business model.
Yeah. So on the business model front, I would say, because when I was still like pivoting through the different business models, it was also during this like really bad market downturn, right? So where suddenly, you have to solve like really real needs. So I was thinking that I think to be able to kind of build a solid business in rain or shine, you have to impact, if it's B2B, you have to impact a company's bottom line, right? Because at the end of the day, a for-profit company has to make profits to deliver value to their shareholders, right? So to touch their profits, then you have to either help the business that you're working with to increase their revenue or help them to reduce their costs, right? So I think just being very clear about how you're touching the revenue or cost leading into increased profits for the business becomes like the closer you can get to that and the more direct the link, I think the faster you can monetize, because businesses are extremely rational stakeholders. If you can help me with the profit, like why not, right? And in Reid Hoffman's book, he's the co-founder of LinkedIn. He wrote about blitzscaling. There's 4 archetypes of customers. There's free customer, meaning like consumers, and it's free products for them. And then there's businesses that's free, and then there's paid also for both sides. So the easiest to please is free consumer, followed by free business, followed by free paid business, and then the hardest to please is paid consumer, because for a consumer that's paying, even if they're like paying $10 subscription, they're like, oh, why am I paying for this? Consumers, like the expectations are really high. So I would say if you're trying to figure out a business model right now, B2B is probably the better way to go to turn like sustainable and profitable, because for consumer businesses, you practically cannot break even on like, you have to burn for a long time, right? Like Amazon, for example. And right now, cost of customer acquisition is extremely high. So I would say target businesses rather than consumers, because they can pay more and they're very rational and easier to please.
Just to add to that, so again, different because we're nonprofit, but I mean, we have to have a business model to make sure we meet like our revenue goal and that our employees and everyone can be paid. For us, I think it was making sure that you can like have like collecting data is one thing, but when you can't like make sense and visualize the data, because I think that when you over collect data and you can't understand the trends for it, then that's not going to serve you well. So on our part, it was like making sure that we are able to understand like where were the different donations, like revenue streams coming from, and then in comparison, compare that to like the current market conditions. So when we started, as an example, for Welcome Chinatown, we had a lot of individual small donors, and that I think came from being able to have, right, there were the relief, like the COVID like relief that was able to be there. People were home. There was a little bit more of like they weren't going out, and there was a shift in how that they were kind of like being more willing to put their individual dollars. as we like went back into like a return to normalcy, we saw like the trend in like, okay, this individual giving is not going to be as sustainable, and we now need to look at other resources, like other funding streams. So that was like tapping into government or tapping into corporations, foundations. But then on the other side was like, as we tap into this new revenue stream, were we actually equipped to be able to do that? So in the government, for example, that was extremely, extremely hard for us to navigate. That it made sense of like, is it worth us hiring consultants to support that revenue stream? And in the end, it was like, yes, because we were able to grow our, like that donation stream by like 10x by getting those like consultants. So I think getting a really good pulse on the data is important. And I would also emphasize that on like the impact side. One of the things that I think we've gotten really strong at is like matchmaking. As an example of like being able to connect individuals to areas for like whether it's funding, marketing. We recently had a event, like it was a holiday fundraiser, but what we did was we created connection cards. So I spent like hours mapping individuals and thinking like this person should meet this person, and on the card putting like why this person should meet. So each person who like kind of like came in, they had this connection card and they were getting like 2 to 3 unique individuals that they would meet. We know that like business was done in the room, even though it was a fundraiser for us. Like a small business owner was able to get an investment into their business, or another led into like a marketing collaboration. But into measuring the impact, I think some of the difficult part is like holding yourself accountable to the follow-up for that, to make sure, because then we're spending now, like that fundraiser was in like early December, and now we're still like 90 days out asking, hey, how was that? Did you end up talking to that person? Did you do that? And then figuring out like how to collect that information to tell like what's my unique value, or like that essentially like product market fit. And our unique value for us was like that matchmaking ability.
I think mine is probably straightforward. When I knew it was going to be an e-commerce business, and thinking about my target audience and my target consumer, I knew I wanted to reach people all around the country who in particular didn't have access to resources to celebrate traditions from their culture. And so that was an easy decision to make in terms of the business model of making it B2C and having an e-commerce platform. And unexpected, but I did have it as in mind, but it became an unexpected consumer basis targeting businesses. Corporations turned out to be a great source of a great customer base because lots of companies, they have employee resource groups, and they want to celebrate the cultures and traditions of their staff. And so that was really encouraging to see, and to get to work with a few companies in supporting their Lunar New Year celebrations and their gifting. So that's we're kind of digesting this in real time, but I think we'll moving forward we'll build a stream to focus on B2C in that way as well.
Yes. Do you have a question?
Did I just ask?
Yeah. Yeah. We can hear you.
Okay. Hi everybody. I'm Jose. I'm a hackathon organizer for a company called Angel Hacks. Edwina, I really loved your points about the Asian founder thing. I think the sales embarrassment is actually more of an introvert thing, because I'm an introvert and I have a hard time with sales, even though that's a part of my function. So that's my theory on it. So I have 2 questions as well. The first question is, and this is related to the previous question, is how do you determine your first price point when you're iterating? Because that's a big challenge. And then the second question that I have is specifically for Edwina. You built a tech platform, and my understanding is you don't have a tech background. So how did you go about doing that? Because I find that's an incredible challenge for a lot of founders.
So I think with first price point, honestly, we're still figuring it out. So what I realized is a lot of it is just experimentation, right? So you might go to the first person you talk to, you propose this, and you see how they react. Are they like, oh, shocking? Then you're like, okay, way too high, right? Or if they're like, oh, so cheap, done, we're closing. Then oh, okay, probably like that's too cheap, because you want them to close, but not like yeah, I guess you don't want to leave too much money on the table also. But I would say generally I tend to err on the side of closing as fast as possible, even if initially like I have to do a lot more work and so my profit margins are like really low, sometimes even loss making. So for two reasons. One is I think having a lot of clients builds momentum and it helps you refine your product, because when you have a lot of people using it, then they give you feedback. You're like, hey, this is not good, that is not good, and you're like, oh, okay, then you change it, and then you keep making a better and better product. So I would say, versus if you say no, 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 and you only hold out for like high price points, then you don't actually get the benefit of like improving the product. So that's one. The other thing is why I might sometimes choose a loss-making client is if they're strategic. If let's say they're a really good brand name where I'm like, okay, if I have them as a logo, then you know it actually helps you build trust, because then other clients, if they see, oh, they have this client, then like I would totally do business with them. So that logo sometimes can be important also. Then I would sometimes even like do it at a loss, just so that like I could develop a relationship and then hopefully do more in the future as well. So I would say it's an experiment, it's a consistent experiment, but I would err on the side of like going as low to close fast. And then the other question was on, sorry, I forgot.
It's okay. The second question was the tech founders announcement.
Oh, right. So I was super blessed that when I was in the funds world, one of my analysts who had worked for me for 2 years, she knew of, she was a product manager at a previous startup where she worked really closely with an engineering lead. So she recommended me to this engineering lead and he became my co-founder CTO. So I have a co-founder CTO and he does everything to do with engineering. I do everything else that is non-engineering. So yeah, I have a CTO.
Okay, great, thanks. First of all, thank you so much. You guys are boss ladies, so inspirational. Thank you. My question is, we're in the beginning of this year right now. I'm curious as to what your business goals are for your various enterprises and your nonprofit as well. Just out of curiosity, what do you want to accomplish by the end of this year?
Well, I definitely want to get our space built, hopefully without major issues with there. So getting the space built, and for us is I think resetting a lot of our programming. So I really believe in like trying to expose ourselves to different outside ideas. Like we're such a place-based organization, and I think the concern would be like we're in an end up operating in an echo chamber. So like our offsite this year, we went to Houston and we met with a ton of nonprofits there. And what we wanted to do was essentially say like, okay, we have to like step back and like reset our organization and how we revisit programming. So the goal of like opening this hub and hopefully having this programming and like shifting some of our funding model, we used to be very like grants heavy. And what we were finding on the grant side, you know, the grants do make a difference, but we wanted it to be more like future thinking, sustainable, and also to empower entrepreneurs to think about how they can test things and like have this opportunity for a playground. So my goal is that, you know, hopefully we reopen this fully constructed hub by end of July, and that by Q4 we actually are aiming to launch our incubator at that time frame. And to be able to fund someone from that incubator and ideally place them actually into a Chinatown, like a vacant storefront. So that it's like, okay, not only are you getting that opportunity to have the start funding, but like we actually want to see you in the community. We want you to be a part of that community. So that's a major goal of mine, is being able to like incubate like that next generation of entrepreneurs. And then the last goal I would say is for us is Chinatown's facing a succession planning challenge. You have a lot of retiring, aging business owners. So we're working with a couple of business owners right now who like don't know what their retirement plan is. So I would consider it a success for us if we're able to like help them think about what are their like post-business retirement plans and guide them there like successfully.
And for me, I mean, just coming again out of this Lunar New Year whirlwind, I'm hoping to get the opportunity to do this again. We launched with our collection of boxes for Lunar New Year to make it easy for folks to celebrate. But the business idea, the mission is beyond just beyond Lunar New Year. And again, I hope to do it again next Lunar New Year, and I hope to, in between, be able to build other concepts, other ideas that I have that speak to this mission of strengthening connection to culture for folks and fostering cultural appreciation, and particularly the cultures that I identify with. So, firstly, I want to continue building community around this mission, hearing from so many folks so far and hearing how they resonate has been inspiring in of itself for me and really heartwarming. So I want to build that momentum of that community and build these conversations about how we go about strengthening our connection to culture, hearing from others' experiences and getting ideas from folks on what would help them strengthen their connection to culture and help their families so that they can share their cultures with their children so that culture can continue to evolve and endure. But yeah, I have a lot of exciting ideas in store for what comes next, and I think most immediately is I want to connect with resources and that I'm learning about today, and to figure out how I actually logistically go about those next steps. Want to tap into some of these great sessions about fundraising, for example, and learning from others and seeking financing for how I can potentially build more momentum and grow the business.
For us, it's expanding into 2 more cities this year. So Boston, hopefully by mid this year, and then maybe San Francisco by the end of the year. And for us, we really want to bring like a, kind of like a Starbucks, but for communities and friends. So anywhere you go in the world, the hope is like if you go to London or you visit any country, like Vietnam, you can go and like plug into the tech community there, and immediately you have a group of friends that you can hang out with, across and like with the locals, even if you're just visiting. So we want to develop these communities in a similar like kind of standardized way, across multiple cities. So this year is about like really that standardization, codification, because you really need that to be extremely well oiled when you're going into like different cities.
I'm afraid we are quite close to the end of the event. Maybe would encourage you all to use the next 10 minutes to talk to each other, interact with the panelists, and I will follow up with a thank you email with all the LinkedIn, so you can connect with the panelists, but also the recording would be available online. Feel free to reach out if you are coming into this lunar year with the pledge to give. There's a sign up to become a WeConnect mentor. If you are seeking free one-on-one mentor service for an idea or your current business, there's also a sign up out there to seek a mentor. So on both ends, those services are available besides all the other services that NYC offers. With that note, I will close it. It's Friday evening. We do want to close this facility at 6. But thank you all for taking your afternoon.
Thank you so much.